everybody, and welcome to Expat Kingdom. Today, I'm excited because I'm going to be speaking to DeAnna and Michael Gossman, who live in Cuenca, Ecuador, and you guys have been there about a year and a half now, right?
Right.
Correct.
Good. Okay. And so, if I remember right, just from previous conversations and everything, this is actually our second attempt at doing this. We had technical difficulties on the first one. You're from the Gulf Coast of Mississippi, is that right?
Yeah, but we're from Biloxi.
Okay. All right, good. So when it comes to making that move, because it's quite a dramatic, I mean, you guys were on the coast and then now you are more inland in Ecuador. What inspires you to make a move like that? First of all, I guess really abroad, more than anything.
Right. Not only inland, but on top of a mountain as well.
We went from 25 feet above sea level to 8,900 feet above sea level. So yeah, that in itself was a transition. He had always talked about retiring abroad from the moment we got married almost. It was always, we're going to live somewhere else. He graduated from high school in London. So travel and living abroad was always, I guess, comfortable for him. I had never done that. I had moved from Biloxi to Atlanta and Atlanta to Biloxi. That was it for me. I grew up in Biloxi and Ocean Springs, and our kids grew up in Biloxi and Ocean Springs. So
I was a Navy brat, so I moved every 2 years my whole life, really. So I'm just used to moving and liking new experiences. And the reason we picked Cuenca, a big one, was the weather. And the weather is really delightful here.
Yeah.
So do you miss the coast at all?
We take trips to the coast.
Yeah,
we're planning one now. Actually.
Yeah, we're going down to Montanita.
Probably
Montanita. Down in that area, there's some really beautiful B&Bs down there. So we went last year in July, and I think we'll go back again this year with another 2 or 3 other groups of families in June.
So when you make that
a little beach fix.
Okay. So when you make that trip down to the coast, what is that like for you? As far as, are you guys driving?
Mm-hmm.
How long of a drive is that?
About 6 hours.
Yeah. To get from there to the front door of the place we stay is about 6 hours.
Okay, gotcha.
We have to go through the Cajas in the Andes, basically.
Oh,
so it's quite a trip. You go to 13,000 feet. It's foggy sometimes. There's some landslides. It's kind of interesting.
Interesting word.
Yeah.
Well, and
we went one time. I thought we were going to die. So
that's happened to me a few times in Ecuador.
And the buses pack on blind curves, and it's a whole other. Some of the curves don't have rails, so it's a whole new experience.
Yeah. I recently did another interview with somebody in Ecuador, and we were talking about the driving and just how different it is and how aggressive it can be. So I know exactly what you're referring to in regards to that. So when it came, so it sounds like, Michael, for you then, the idea of living abroad is something that's really been kind of like an itch for you. And for DeAnna, you really had never had much experience abroad. Is that correct?
Well, we traveled. We'd go on vacations and we'd go to Italy, or we'd take a cruise to the Caribbean somewhere. So we traveled a lot. But calling someplace else home was a new experience.
Gotcha.
But I've never thought of myself as a fearful person.
No.
I've always been, all right, sure, I'll try anything once. So he kept sending me emails or sending me links to videos or sending me articles. What about this place? What about this place? What about this place? And I would look and go, absolutely not. And Cuenca kept coming back to the top. And he's like, this place has really got a lot of what we're looking for. It's got the infrastructure. It's got the climate. It's got the system, the economic system, the school system, the medical system.
It's got art and architecture and culture.
Yeah, that's
a very beautiful place.
That's an interesting little nugget that you brought up, was the art. If I'm not mistaken, Cuenca is really the center of art for Ecuador. Is that?
Yeah.
Would you agree?
They call it the Athens of Ecuador, South America.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's free.
Yeah.
It blows my mind. I mean, you think about trying to get into museums in New York or in Washington, D.C., you're going to spend a very big penny to get culture. Mm-hmm. Here, culture is free to everybody.
Yeah.
Symphonies.
Yeah.
Art exhibits, just everything to do with art.
That's great. I'm a fan of art, and actually on my last trip to Ecuador in 2012,
So they're promoting a cultural experience.
I'm sorry, say that again.
So it's just promoting the cultural experience for the people that really can't afford a big ticket to get into museums or symphonies and that sort of thing.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and what I was saying is I'm actually a big fan of art myself, and on my last trip to Ecuador in 2012, we discovered an artist that we fell in love with his work, and we ended up buying one of his paintings and brought it home, which was a whole nother ordeal. But he's actually from Cuenca.
Oh wow!
Nice.
Yeah, so beautiful work, and so I would encourage people when they are in Cuenca to really seek out the artwork because there's a great opportunity to see a lot of fabulous artwork. So the things that you were kind of running off or listing off, were those your big priorities when it came to finding a place to live abroad? The the climate, the medical, those kind of things.
Right. Politics. The currency is the American dollar, so you don't have to worry about conversions. And the climate was a big one for us.
Yeah.
It's so hot in Biloxi, Mississippi that you spend a lot of time inside in the air conditioning, and you feel like a prisoner after a while.
Yeah.
It's nice to be able to go out every single day and go walking place.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
There's a good expat community here too.
It's pretty close knit too.
Yeah, it is. Just you have criteria of things that you want, that you're going to look for. Because if you have the choice to live literally anywhere in the world, I want that place to hit my top 10. And we looked at Nicaragua, we looked at Panama, we looked at
Canary Islands,
we looked at Ireland is too cold. We looked at south of France or the north of France. I don't know. We looked all over the world.
Abruzzo, Italy.
Yeah. And this just kept coming back up to the surface. So we said, let's go look.
Wow.
So
that's really neat. Now, one of the other things too that we should mention is that you took along with you came two teenage girls. Is that so? They're if I remember right, they're 14 and 16. Is that right?
14 and 17.
14 and 17.
Yeah, the 17-year-old will actually be 18 in June. 14 just turned 14 this last December. We came in 2011. We brought one of Michael's older daughters, my mother, and the two girls. And we were here for 14 days or so. And by the time we got back, our girls had melted down. They were not going anywhere. They were going to live with their granny if we were going to leave them. And they wouldn't talk to me about it. And I couldn't figure out why. They were talking to my best friend neighbor next door, and they were telling her that they were afraid of the schools. Because when we came, we looked at 2 or 3 private schools. The girls and I both were expecting these very international, very refined, bilingual children, young adults. And that's not what they found. When they were interacting with these kids in the school, they were just as obnoxious as kids are back in the United States. And that really surprised. They had a very Pollyanna vision.
I think it's true everywhere.
It's true everywhere. Kids are kids everywhere. Kids talk about getting in trouble at school. Kids, they do all these things anywhere in the world. So, we told them, we don't have to go to these schools. We can look at other schools. They were very concerned about not knowing the language and being thrown into the deep end. So we said, okay, let's do online school. We'll do online school until you're comfortable with the language, and we will put you into a local brick and mortar school. And, Kara has done, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Go ahead. Kara's done really well. She'll graduate this June, so we're not going to bother, but she will probably pick up a couple of classes at the university. Kristen's Spanish is getting better, and we will probably put her into 8th grade this coming up year. So.
Gotcha. So, and when it came to that 2-week trip that you took, what was it like for them just from a cultural experience and just kind of getting introduced to the country? How, because it sounded like they were very apprehensive about the school, but when it came to the actual country and making the move, school aside, how did they feel?
I think they had a time.
Yeah, I think they had a good time.
We went for like a 3-hour horseback riding tour through the mountains. It was gorgeous.
Yeah.
And inexpensive.
Yeah. Kara's big thing at the time was in 2011, I'm not moving there if I can't get ketchup. This is the mind of a 13-year-old. And I'm like, what?
So we went to the mall and I took a picture of all the ketchup.
Like the American Heinz, Hunt's, all that added crap ketchup. Now she doesn't even eat it anymore. She eats the local ketchup, but that was her like stick in the was the ketchup. And I'm like, are you kidding me? And she's like, no, I'm not going if I can't have ketchup.
And there are a number of things you can't get here.
Yeah.
You can't get Jiffy peanut butter. You can't, there's a lot of American products that you can't get. It's a little frustrating, but
you adapt.
There are substitutes.
Yeah, you adapt. And you learn to make things yourself, which
is much healthier.
Is so much healthier, so much better for you. It's a little more time consuming, but I know exactly what is in that jar of stewed tomatoes, or I know exactly what's in that peanut butter.
Sure.
So
you make a lot more things from scratch.
Yeah. If you want a biscuit, you're going to have to make a biscuit.
Yeah, and if you need something bad enough, like let's just say the Jiffy peanut butter, then you just kind of plan ahead, and when somebody's visiting, you ask them to bring a couple jars, or the next time you go on your trip.
Oh yeah, no, they're called mules. Yes, they're called mules. Will somebody please mule back for me? Yes. So you make accommodations.
Crystal Light tea.
Yeah, Crystal Light tea. It's terrible. That's my product. I can't do without it. So everybody comes, they bring me Crystal Light tea. It's terrible.
That's funny. Now, you guys, if I remember right, I think you had a friend recently visit. Is that right?
Uh-huh.
How was that?
Yeah, my girlfriend Linda came down.
How was that for her?
She had a blast. She had a blast. She was here for 5 or 6 days in the beginning of March, and every day we were going. And I think she had a really good time. She did. We took her horseback riding one day. We went up to Turi and did the bus tour.
Went to a lot of nice restaurants.
Oh, we went to the orchid farm, Equinaria, which is just outside of Cuenca. Just
species you have?
Like 3,400 species.
3,400 species of
orchids. It's the most ridiculous place on the planet. I love going there. So yeah, no, she had a great time.
Miami is known in the U.S. for orchids, but they have 200 varieties.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
It's pretty amazing.
That's really neat. So, can you then, for anybody that may not be familiar with Cuenca yet, which, as we mentioned, I mean, Cuenca does have a huge expat community. In fact, right now, I would say it's probably the hot spot for expats. Can you tell us a little bit about Cuenca for anybody that's maybe just now discovering it through this interview, or is just now starting to really learn about Cuenca?
Well, there's really two distinct parts of Cuenca. The El Centro area is the oldest continually utilized area for commerce in South America. It's 500 years old. And it's really unique to go down there because you'll go into a shop that's been there for 450 years, down through the generations. We live in a suburb called Misicata up on a mountain, which is kind of like an American suburb. I mean, it's not a lot different, really.
Well, there's cows everywhere.
Well, there's chickens, goats, and that sort of thing. But, we have a tienda across the street if we want to buy something that we ran out of.
Right, eggs or onions or milk.
So life is pretty normal for that, But when you go down to El Centro, it's just really unique and beautiful.
It reminds me of Netherlands, because a lot of the Spanish architecture, the wrought iron, the beautiful carved doors, and I think that's what struck us when we came in 2011, was how similar in look, not in feel, it was to New Orleans. Yeah, being in the French Quarter of New Orleans. So.
Gotcha.
It has a lot of flavor. I mean,
yeah.
The local foods and little ice cream shops.
Oh God, these people eat ice cream for lunch. I've never seen people be so thin and eat ice cream as much as these Ecuadorians do. It's amazing to me.
People are thin. They're in shape because they're walking
Yeah.
everywhere. You know.
And it's the altitude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We blame everything on
We
the
blame
altitude.
everything on the altitude. Water won't boil, altitude. My hair's flat, altitude.
Because we're all walking more, we're a lot
Yeah.
healthier and we feel better. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a big plus because we really couldn't do that. In the U.S., there's no place to walk to. You have to drive everywhere. You know?
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Unless you live in France.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, ice cream is kind of my that's my weakness, I guess you could say. Is I'm a sucker for ice cream, so I'm
They got good ice cream.
You're piquing my interest right now. For sure.
They do have good ice cream.
Especially if I can eat it
It's all
and be
freshly
thin.
made.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
You just have to walk.
You just have to walk everywhere. You got to walk there. You got to walk back. So, I mean, we've been here for a year and a half, and Michael has lost 70 pounds since we got here. I'm down maybe 25 pounds. The girls are down 20 to 25 pounds. And I don't know that our eating habits have changed drastically. Yours have.
But we're eating healthier.
But we're eating fresher. We're eating healthier. We're walking. We take the bus into downtown. We did buy a car, which we said we weren't going to do. Being where we are, if it's a holiday, there's no bus. You know, if it's a Saturday night, there's no bus. If it's a Sunday morning, there's no bus. So being trapped in your home, you know, and they have holidays. They have lots of holidays. Mm-hmm. If there's a saint's day, they're going to celebrate it. So we did buy a car, which is great, but we do still take the bus. If we're going to go out to dinner, we're going to drink, we'll take the bus down, we'll take a cab back. So we do still walk a lot, even though we do have a car. So
gotcha. Can you talk about that a little bit? Because I know with my knowledge about Ecuador and everything, the cars are going to be a lot more expensive down there, based on the taxes and everything, the importation taxes and such. So I would imagine it's probably going to be a used car with a handful of miles, and it's going to be kind of like I have no idea what you purchased, but it's probably a lot more expensive than what you would have paid for that car here. So can you just talk about that a little bit for people that aren't familiar with that?
We bought a 2003 Chevy.
Grand Vitara.
Grand Vitara, which I don't think they have in the States.
It's like the body of a Geo Tracker.
Yep.
So it's a 12-year-old car. But it's kind of like Cuba, they take care of their automobiles much better than I think that we do in the U.S. So they keep them up. If something little goes wrong, they pretty much take care of it right away.
Yeah.
So this car, has had almost everything replaced in it. It's almost like a new car. So the engine has been rebuilt, and just a lot of transmission was replaced, a lot of things. So it's in pretty good shape. We paid $11,400 for it. Now, I don't know what you'd pay for that in the U.S., but I imagine you can get one for probably $7,000. Because most cars, I think, are made here. Aren't they made here? They import the parts from China and they build them here. Manufacturing
here.
Putting it together. Yeah.
Used cars really retain their value. It's not like back in the States where you'll buy a $35,000 car, you'll lose $10,000 off a car that you drive it off the lot. It's not like that here. These cars really, really retain their value. Now, we're seeing a lot more new, big F-150s, Hummers, Suburbans on the roads because, as an Ecuadorian, you can import a car.
A new car.
It can't be more than a year or two old. There's a lot of criteria. But us bringing in a container, we could not bring in a car because we're not an Ecuadorian citizen.
Right.
So you can see these families that are moving back to Ecuador from Spain and Europe and the United States, that they're bringing in these really nice brand new cars.
Well,
because they know that car is going to hold its value when they're ready to sell in 10 years.
What's interesting is, and you're correct, if you're a returning Ecuadorian, you can bring a car in. There is criteria. There's things like the weight, the value, the engine size. So it's actually got to be a smaller car. The big cars like the F-150s, the Ford Explorers, those I've found are actually being purchased down there. And
really?
Yeah, and people are spending $80,000 on those cars, and
That's crazy.
yeah, and it just baffles my mind because I don't know how, economically speaking, they're able to do it, but it's fascinating. And my wife has a cousin who purchased a brand new Ford Explorer down there, and he's like, listen, it's worth it to me because I can go and take the weekend trips, with the family, and I can go off road, and I'm not worried about the car breaking down and these things. But it was probably somewhere between a $60,000 to $80,000 car at the end of the day.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
I can't imagine how much those Hummers cost here then.
Do you know how far you can go in a cab on 60,000?
Yeah.
Yep.
Around the world.
Oh
Yep.
my God, that's crazy.
Yeah. So, but yeah, you're right though. I mean, 100%. You're seeing a lot more of those newer cars that are, expensive cars in the States, and then you take them down there and they're even more expensive. It's mind-boggling. So when it comes to your transition, then, well, actually, I wanted to, you mentioned something earlier that you had also brought up in the last interview that we attempted. About the water, and this is something that I really never understood when it came to boiling water. I didn't realize this, even with all my trips down there, because there's usually just maids for us cooking and all that. So I've never had to take it into consideration. But because of, if I'm not mistaken, what I recall is that because of the altitude, the water takes longer to boil. Is that correct?
Takes longer to boil, but it boils at a lower temperature.
Which doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense. It's just the way it is. So it takes it longer to get to that lower temperature.
It's weird.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's been an
You have to take
adjustment.
that into account.
That's been an
Yes.
adjustment then when it comes to cooking, is just kind of understanding, how
And
that.
baking, there's the whole high altitude baking, and it's so funny. You'll get the directions for high altitude baking at 4,500 feet, and I'm like, this still doesn't apply to me. So.
And you're, if I recall, Cuenca's what, like 7,000 or something? How?
We're 88.
We're 8,900 right
8,900.
We're above Cuenca. We're up on a mountain.
Gotcha. Okay.
We're not that far. 500 feet.
900 feet.
900 feet. Yeah.
Enough that you can notice it. What?
Yeah.
So the transition from U.S. to Ecuador, how was that as far as finding, a property for you to live in? If you could just kind of dig into those things, like, are you renting? Did you purchase? Those kind of details for people.
We researched ahead of time, really a long time ahead of time, trying to get a feel for the different areas and what the rents were. And we actually rented a house before we got here. We had a series of 40 pictures of the property, and it also up on a little outside of Cuenca, on 5 acres. How many bedrooms? 5.
4.
Okay, well, we converted one space, but it was a very big property, very pretty. But it was a little remote, a little bit outside of town,
Down a dirt road.
and not on a bus line.
Yeah.
So that was a bit of a problem for us, especially for the girls, because they just felt like they couldn't get around town very well. So we decided to move, and we found another expat couple that really liked the property. So it was painless. They just moved in, and we moved out.
Yeah.
So.
And this is our
Rents are very reasonable.
Yeah, this is our third house since we've been here, and as far as I'm concerned, it'll be the last. It's a beautiful 3.5 story, 6 bedroom, 5 and 2 half baths, big volleyball court out front, nice big yard in the back.
All kinds of fruit and vegetable trees.
Oh yeah,
bushes.
avocados and moras and tomatillos and bell peppers, and it's a gorgeous house, and we have wonderful landlords. They are just the sweetest, cutest little tiny Ecuadorian couple whose kids live in the United States, and she is the girl's abuela as far as she's concerned.
Oh, that's great.
So,
Grandmother.
which means grandmother. So.
Right.
We pay $550 a month for rent.
That's mind-boggling.
Yes.
That's fantastic. So I remember too, last time you were talking about how I believe the girls, they have no problem jumping on the bus, going into town, and that's really been there's no issues or concerns regarding safety with that.
Mm-mm. You know, Kara actually has house sits for people who have pets who are going on vacation, and she's on the other side of town right now for the next couple of months. And she will ride the bus over. Now, I don't want her riding the bus at night. You know, it's common sense. You know, if you're on the street in downtown and there's nobody on the street, you need to get off the street because the locals know something you don't know. It's common sense. You know, people talk about, oh, pickpockets, oh, this. Well, you go to New York, you go to New Orleans, you go to Chicago, you go to Miami, there are going to be pickpockets. There's going to be people who want whatever you have. So you don't whip out your iPad or your iPhone or your Samsung Galaxy in the middle of downtown. You just don't do that. You know, you make sure that you take a cab that, you know, has proper identification on it when you get into a cab late at night. It's common sense. So when she comes over, she'll ride the bus over during the day, and I'll take her back at night. So, you know, them getting on the bus, and Kara goes to writers groups a couple of times a month from wherever she's at. She'll hop on the bus and she'll go. So
not a problem. 25 cents, too.
Yeah, 25 cents.
Speaking about the children, we should mention that we think our kids have really blossomed since we've been here.
Yeah.
DeAnna wrote a Facebook post the other day talking about it. And our 14-year-old has 3 days a week riding lessons, and she's learning to jump horses, something she never had the opportunity to do before.
No. It's really changed her personality. It really has.
Well, our older daughter actually played with the Cuenca Junior Symphony.
Cuenca University Orchestra.
Cuenca University Orchestra.
Yeah.
Which that would never happen.
No.
What other things?
She was volunteering, helping kids after school learn English, and they in turn would help her with her Spanish. She pulled back from that because she's graduating, so she wants to really focus on these last few months of school. Kara's going to China in December with another family. They're doing a heritage tour with their adopted daughter, which is something she never would have been able to do back in the States, just because we wouldn't have had the opportunity to meet the people for her to travel to do that.
Yeah.
She wants to be an international teacher. So I don't know that ever would have been on her radar.
In Biloxi, Mississippi.
In Biloxi. You know, somebody she house sat for a couple of months. She was an international teacher. He was a guidance counselor at the international school, and that really kind of opened her eyes to that opportunity. So they really and truly have blossomed since being here.
Wow. It sounds like, in a way, and I don't, this may come across wrong or whatever, but it almost sounds like they went from being maybe your typical American girls to now they've got a much different perspective on life, on the world, on family, on those kind of things.
They have an international viewpoint now that they never had before.
Yeah, even as much as we traveled when they were little, it was still just a vacation. It wasn't having to deal and cope with the local culture, the local customs. It was we're stepping in, we're stepping out. Well, here we're stepping in, and we're stepping in all the way up to our knees. So you better, our necks. You better figure it out. You better be respectful. You know, they never, walking down the street in the United States, God forbid you should say hi to somebody. God forbid you should catch somebody's eyes. They don't know what to do. Here, you say good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody you pass.
Start a conversation as well.
You don't just go, hey, I need da. There's a conversation that has to ensue, and then you discuss what needs to be done. And we have had so many elderly people who were just passing, Buenos dias. They go, oh, Buenos dias. Oh, and they grab your hand and they start talking to you, and they'll grab the girl's faces. Oh, muy linda. I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing. It's community and socialization and connection is so much more important here than we ever found. I'm Southern. I hug everybody. You come into my home, I'm going to hug you. I'm going to kiss you. We're going to, have a whole thing. Everywhere else, that just doesn't happen. It's very formal.
One nice thing about the Latin community.
Oh yeah, everybody, strangers, you hug and kiss the first time you meet them.
Yeah.
And I love it. I love it.
And I think you referred to this earlier, but I think that there's a heightened sense of awareness because you're in a new culture. It's just almost exciting every day, no matter what you do.
Yeah.
you're learning something every day.
Every day is an adventure.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's interesting because, my daughter on our last trip to Ecuador, she was 2 years old, and my daughter, from the time she was born to the time she was 2, she had been to Italy, to Dominican Republic, and to Ecuador. And every single time that we made a trip, no matter what her age was, we noticed this stimulation and this growth that took place that I don't think would have happened at the same level if we had just been in our normal everyday routine. And so I think it's interesting to hear that that still takes place, and I guess it makes sense, but it still has occurred even in with the teenagers. And one of the other things too, I wanted to ask, just based off some of the things you were saying, is have you noticed a big difference in the way families interact with each other from a cultural perspective between the United States and Ecuadorians? Because me being an American here, and I'm married to an Ecuadorian, and I've got my wife's family with us every day. All right, everybody, welcome back. We had a little hiccup over here because my power went out. So we're back online, and thank you guys for being patient with me. So before I lost power, I was asking if you guys have noticed a big difference in the way that American families interact and engage with each other versus Ecuadorian families.
Okay, is that mine?
I'll take the first part. You can have the second part. I noticed that Ecuadorian families are very affectionate. Adult children will walk hand in hand or arm in arm with their parents down the street, which you don't see a lot back in the States. And I'm getting a little feedback.
We're getting feedback from her voice. I don't know what that.
How about now? Try it.
Right.
Testing 1, 2, 3. It's a little bit. Families here are very affectionate. It's not separated. The grandparents don't go off and live their life. The grandparents are very involved with the children.
Homes are multi-generational.
And I find that my children now are more willing to walk hand in hand with me down the street, or arm in arm with their dad walking down the street, which they didn't do back home. God forbid, their friends, we should be walking through the mall and see them holding their mom's hand. Here, that's just what they do. So you take the second part with the
standard.
The American families that have moved here.
Okay, American families that have moved here, we found to be more friendly than they are back in the States, because I think it's kind of like being on a lifeboat, everybody helps each other. If you're looking for something, you can put it online and people will give you directions or give you some suggestions and that sort of thing. People are more helpful, they're more friendly.
Yeah.
And as a result, we have closer friends, I think, now than we ever did in the United States.
And I think part of that is a good bit of the expats that are here, even ones with family, they don't have to work 40, 50 hours a week. Their kids they're in activities, but their activities for their kids don't absorb or take over their lives like they do back in the States. School here for the little kids is from 7 to 1:30, and then the big kids go to school at 12:30, 1:30, and don't get out till 7 or 8 o'clock at night. So that's a whole...
Using the same school.
Yeah, using the same schools.
So they don't need two sets of schools. They just have one set of schools.
Oh, really? I didn't realize that.
Right.
Yeah.
It's smart, actually.
Yeah, it's really smart. Kids don't function well at 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. They function better from, 2 to 6 in the evening. Mm-hmm. So, I think that it does change, and you see how these Ecuadorian families interact, and they're very touchy. They're very affectionate, which you just don't see in the United States in public. Families may be very affectionate to each other at home, but you just don't see a lot of that in public. So it's great.
Kids are very invested in the whole family, the grandparents.
Yeah.
And, they're very close. There's not a lot of nursing homes.
Right.
I mean, if you're older, you live with your children. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And if you're a child, you live with your parents until your life is sorted out. So
Yeah, and that's with my wife's family being Ecuadorian, it's very much the same for them too. My mother-in-law lives with us not because she has to, but because it's our choice. It's the way
It's the way
we,
it is.
yeah,
Yeah.
and our children are so attached to her, and it's really it's just a nice way to live. It really is.
It's the way America was in the early 1900s.
Yeah. And one thing that I noticed with the expat community here, us having kids, they'll have park days. Well, they have expat families, and they always get together, or they try to always get together Sunday afternoon in the park. And it's not just for young families with young kids, grandparents who are missing their grandkids or need that little kid fix will also come to the park and hang out with the families and the kids. So the kids get that benefit of having that grandparent interaction, even though it's not their biological grandparents. And retirees here get that opportunity to interact with young kids for missing their grandkids. Kara and Kristen have both had wonderful mentors here from the expat community. We have friends that are art teachers, chemistry teachers, architects, writers. Kara will go to these writing groups, and they'll have women there who are published, unpublished, love to write, and will really help guide Kara and mentor her. And I don't think we would have gotten that opportunity back in the United States. So
and these park get-togethers are not just gringos. We also try and get Ecuadorians involved.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, one of the big things I wanted to ask then too, just talking about the fact that you've got teenagers down there and everything, what kind of advice would you give to anybody that's making or taking a move like this into consideration with teenagers?
Definitely come visit first before you move.
Yeah. But not even just coming here, exposing them to other cultures, not just, this one that you're going to, jump into feet first. Give them the opportunity to see how different countries live and how they function and how they interact. It's important to expose these kids. The younger, the better. We have friends that have 3 and 6-year-old kids. They speak great Spanish. At 3 and 6 years old, their little brains are so eager to learn and to know and to understand. Mm-hmm. And expose your kids. Travel with your kids.
We took our kids on a tour of Europe before we came here, and after.
Yeah.
After the first visit.
Yeah.
And it really helped, I think, to expose them to French culture, Italian culture.
Right. You can function anywhere in the world. It's not. The world is not to be afraid of. I mean, you have to be smart in your space and not be distracted. But
you can adapt.
You can adapt. You can function anywhere in the world. It's really important. We have friends whose kids have not been further than Disneyland, Atlanta, and in the United States, and they really and truly think that little bubble is the only part of the world that exists that they'll know. It's so important. It's so important to expose your kids to the world.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I remember when I took my first international trip, I was 19 years old, and my mind.
How exciting!
Yeah, my mind practically exploded just from how, and it was to Ecuador actually, and my mind just exploded, with how neat it was and how fascinating the world can be, and then I just basically got hungry to understand more about the world and all that, and so. And ultimately has led to this project too. So
yeah, Kara has no interest to go back to the United States. She says there is so much more world I have not seen, and that's why she wants to do international teaching. I want to go everywhere and be everywhere and see everything, and I'm like, go.
Yeah, that's
gonna cry, but I want you to go.
Well, that's fascinating because you mentioned it earlier, and I feel confident that that's the case that. She wouldn't have that interest if it hadn't been for this trip that you guys have done, or this move that you guys have made. So that's really fascinating. So you basically just shared a lot as far as taking a trip down there first and all that. Is there anything else that you would really suggest or encourage people to do, or just know before making a move like this?
If you're interested in coming to Ecuador, there are Facebook pages for expats that have just a wide variety of information that you can't find anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I would encourage people to go online and look at that and ask questions and make themselves more comfortable.
Read the files.
Yeah,
read the files, then ask questions. And a lot of what we said has been really positive and really great. And you rose-colored glass. And it's not everything is great. Not everything is great. Mañana does not mean tomorrow. Mañana means someday in the future. So it took us 5 weeks to get internet in this house. So that's frustrating, and that's going to 4 or 5 different internet companies, and totally being given the runaround. There are a lot of frustrating things.
Be patient.
Oh yeah, don't come.
come.
Don't come. If you don't have patience, stay there. There is no instant gratification, no on-demand information.
Right.
It is a whole, and some people come and they can't handle it and they go back or they go someplace else.
Right. Yeah, I'm glad you bring that up, because I think in a lot of ways we've gotten spoiled here in that capacity. Because even over in Europe, it's not like it is here in that regard. And so I'm glad that you're bringing up the negatives too, because I think it's really important for people to have a good understanding of those things. And when it comes to those things, because that's one of the things that my wife brings up a lot too, is just the conveniences. We've gotten spoiled here with these conveniences, and I think it's important for people to just kind of basically understand what are your priorities, and understand, are you okay with taking some of these away? So what's really going to be important to you, and are you going to be okay with these things? So,
people may think they're patient and they're understanding and they're compassionate, and they get here and they discover they are not. They are not. There's a lot of times you have to walk away. It took us. We had a Calphalon, an instant on-demand hot water heater, is what just about. I don't even think I've seen a typical American 50, 100-gallon hot water heater that keeps hot water until you need it. Everything here is Calphalon.
It's
or
gas.
Califon.
Yeah, Califon.
Califon. And we have 5 full baths, and 2 of them were getting hot water. And the landlord probably had 4 times with 3 different people over a period of 3 months until he finally got it to where it works. And you can't call him and yell at him and demand and expect him to be there when he says he's going to be. That doesn't always happen. So you have to really have to change your mindset, and
you have to be willing to make adaptations.
Yeah, you have to adapt.
One of the things you'll notice when you come to Ecuador is that all the houses have wrought iron all the way around them.
Yeah, the bars on the windows.
To keep people from getting into their property.
Right.
And it's a cultural thing.
Right.
Not necessarily that there's hordes of zombies to get over your fence all the time, but some of them are electrified.
Right. Some of them have glass.
Yeah.
On the walls, the perimeters of the property. And that's just...
It leads you to believe that there's a lot of crime, but there really is not.
Yeah.
And maybe that's one of the reasons why there isn't.
Right.
Well, that's one of the things that really stuck out at me in Quito on that first trip, was all the broken glass that sticks up from the cement walls, and it's a stark contrast from what we're used to.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, guys, I can't thank you enough for your time, and I'm just so thrilled to talk to you guys again, and I appreciate your patience with the connection loss and everything. So. Thanks for coming on, and I hope you guys have a great day.
You too.
Thank you, Elaine.
Right.
Come visit.
I will, for sure. Thank you so much.
Okay.